The task of philosophy is to train the soul to live without contradiction. A man suffers most, not from what happens to him, but from his confusion about what it means and how he ought to respond. To live without contradiction is to bring what one knows and what one does into agreement. This is the true labor of the soul, not to escape suffering, but to remain coherent through it. There are three elements that must come into harmony if one is to live not merely by impulse, but by principle: love, integrity, and what may be called divine alignment. Of these, only the first two are within our immediate influence. The third is not an object of pursuit, but the natural consequence of a life brought into right proportion. It arrives unannounced, like clarity after confusion, not because it was chased, but because the conditions for its appearance were quietly fulfilled. Let us begin with love, a word often abused, but rarely understood. I do not mean affection nor attachment nor the indulgence of sentiment. Love, rightly understood, is the recognition of worth in oneself, in another, in the world. It is what happens when the mind becomes quiet enough to see that the same order which governs the stars also animates the human soul. If I possess even a fragment of that divine spark, I must acknowledge it wherever I encounter it, even in those from whom I am estranged. Love is nothing more than the clear sight that allows one to affirm what is shared, despite all appearances to the contrary. It is not a feeling to be summoned, but a perception to be cultivated. Integrity, by contrast, is not concerned with what one sees, but with how one acts in response. It is not submission to an external law, but fidelity to the order already perceived. The whole of a man's dignity rests in this, whether he lives according to what he knows or whether he chooses convenience over coherence. One does not need to understand the entire architecture of the world to act rightly within the portion that has been revealed. The one who demands certainty before taking a step will never move at all. But the one who proceeds with care and trust in the pattern already visible is, by that very act, preparing himself to receive more. Action in accordance with partial understanding is not folly. It is the path by which understanding deepens. What then is divine alignment? It is the name we give to the condition in which sight and action no longer pull against one another. It is not a new element added to the soul, but the state of balance that arises when what is known and what is done are brought into agreement. This is not a reward, nor is it a possession. It is a stillness, a clarity, a fire that does not consume. One does not achieve it by force, but by the quiet discipline of becoming equal to what is already true. Each of these three, love, integrity, and alignment, implies the others. To see the good in the world is to be drawn into its rhythm. To act faithfully is to deepen one's perception of what is real. And where both are present, the soul becomes luminous without strain. This is not an exalted state reserved for the few, but the natural condition of a being rightly ordered. We are not made virtuous by rare insights or heroic acts, but by the slow and steady harmonizing of what we see with how we live. Beneath this triad lies another, less spoken of but more fundamental still. Light, logos, and life. These are not tasks, but principles. Light is the capacity of things to be known. It is not created by the eye, but discovered by it. Logos is the structure of things, their inner proportion, their rightness. It is not something we invent, but something we either align with or violate. Life is what happens when the two are brought together, the unfolding of form made visible through light and shaped by order. These three do not occur in sequence, but in concert. We cannot separate the light by which we see from the structure of what is seen, nor from the movement by which it expresses itself. To lose one is to obscure the others, to attend to one is to draw the rest into view. Thus, when we speak of love and integrity, we are really speaking of our relationship to these deeper realities, whether we are resisting them or participating in them. Do not ask for great revelations. Live with care, think with clarity, act with steadiness. Let your sight be trained by what is worthy, and let your hand follow your sight. If you do this, not once but continually, you will find that alignment does not need to be sought. It arises on its own, in the soul that no longer divides what it knows from what it does.